So, you want Māori content in your games? Ne? Here's your first step here. O tere o te waka e, tere o te waka e, tere o taku waka nua, tere o taku waka tupuna, tere o taku waka kautere, ka wero tana ihu I ka puke mō ana, ka taiki te whenua, ko te ka hui tipua, ko te ka hui roko, ko te ka hui waitaha e. Mā titi ki te aurua au ki ruka taku waka pā, kakanoka, eke panuku, eke tangoroa, eke au matihiko e. Papa ki kaunanga tai o mihi kia koutou katoa, ko tā wharau nei. Mō tēnei o ngā kōrero tāku. Ko ai tēnei e tūake, he peka tēnei mai te kūhao kaitahu ngari, ko te atua tau te mauka, ko tākou te taiara, ko tākou te marae, ko ka atiroa hiki ki kai te pahi ka hapu, ko Taikawa Tamati Elliffe hau. Kia ora, so I'm Taikawa Tamati Elliffe. The tauparapara or haka that I just did is about our ancestors and their, I guess, their fearfulness or fearfulness of traversing the sea, the land, and now us heading into the digital world. So acknowledging that it may be an awkward space for Māori and Polynesians as well, but we need to remember our tupuna that have come from far and did all that struggle to get to where we are today, and use that as a bit of encouragement for us heading forward into this digital plane. But if you look to the far left, that's my marae, o tākou marae, tamatea te whare. That's down in Otipoti, Dunedin. The second picture is just me trying to do the Lion King thing with my son, but that's over in Tuvalu, where he's from on his mother's side, and that's my beautiful partner, and my son Tū Te Mako, second from the left. And then this is me and my whole whānau on the right outside our marae. So how did I even become a thing at Code? So just giving you my background, started as a bit of a streamer, was being an absolute hua on Apex Legends. Me and my cousin Te Maire were playing together, and we started this little business out of this idea called Ngāti Gaming. So Ngāti Gaming is a Māori community using gaming as a tool to actively use te reo Māori and bring our culture to the forefront. Now it's because of this and reaching out to just anyone, like just help, support anyone for this community, led me to Tim Ponting and the offer for working for Code. So when I first started at Code, it was a bit of advisory mahi for some of the, I guess, the policies, Code being at its foundations built on Te Tiriti o Waitangi, so the Māori version, about working in partnership with iwi from the get-go. So 2 members of the Code board are actually from our local hapu. So we live the life of working in partnership with them, and that comes with all the goods and bads and the politics and whatever else you want to put to it. So yeah, one of my first missions when I began at Code was to take a deeper look at why Māori Pacifica people are underrepresented in our industry. And it was kind of cheeky of the board. It was like my second week at work, and the board goes, "So Taikawa, have you found that answer? Well, why aren't these people?" And my initial answer was that, look, there's a massive digital divide for our whānau. You have to understand that. Although our whānau love gaming and they love getting amongst, couch play, right? Every whānau has like a PlayStation or an Xbox, so they can play together as a whānau. And I'm sure we've all got memories of smacking a sibling or whatever through that. But it's understanding that the price for a console is much cheaper than an entry-level PC. And even on those consoles, you're limited to being able to create. Now, people are very creative people, but we'll get into that a bit deeper. So this is my 4 whys or 6 there actually. So 1, why do we want Māori content in games? This is why. Less than 3% of our industry is Māori. You can be that force of change to elevate whānau. If you give them the pathway into game development, that money will go back to benefit their whānau. It'll uplift their whānau in IT literacy. You know all the outcomes. I'm not going to spout that to you. But what I want to get at is creating more engaging and authentic Māori content. And what does that look like? It doesn't look like, I'm sorry, I'm just going to say it, but Bethesda with a tāmoko on one of their characters. It doesn't look like that. It doesn't look like Cyberpunk, just ripping a tāmoko offline and putting it on a character stencil. It doesn't look like Tony Hawk Pro Skater from back in the day where they only put the black outlines of what a tāmoko looks like. No, that's not working and engaging for authentic Māori content. Yes, your intentions may be well. You may want to represent Māori, ka pai. Why not work with them from the beginning? So look for that long-term engagement of working from the beginning. We'll get deeper into what that can look like. But onto the next topic, we're globally hot, locally not. And I'm talking in terms of marketing, and not to really push into any other kind of political corridor that could go this way. But in terms of locally not, if we made Māori games for Māori alone, that's only 16% of New Zealand's population, your game's not going to sell and do well, and you're not going to be able to continue and be successful, sustainable. Ne? But we're globally hot. There's these big studios wanting Māori content, already putting it into their games, so why not engage with them, looking for those long-term engagements, long-term outcomes, to creating better quality, authentic Māori content in there. And 6, I guess it's more important as an outcome of that, but it's normalizing Māori culture through localization. So even if it was a non-Māori game and you made it relevant by putting Te Reo Māori through it, that's one win. But it's also to normalize Māori in this space. Normalize seeing this content, normalize engaging in the culture and understanding te ao Māori. Now that's a lot to unjuggle, especially if you're new to the culture. But there's so many unique stories that I can tell you that are better than Game of Thrones. So the first step may look a bit like this. I want you to get used to this idea that if you're trying to engage in making Māori content, it's going to take a lot of cup of teas, some super wines, and a lot of kōrero, ne? At least that's the first step. Don't turn up empty-handed to your hui with your Māori that you want to be working with. You know, turn up with at least a cup of tea and a biscuit. Kia ora. But what does meaningful engagement, and I'm not going to spend this whole time talking about te tiriti o Waitangi, but I just want to pull apart what the 3 Ps are from the treaty. So partnership, protection, and participation. Now working with iwi or working with Māori in your game, or wanting the content that you want to get out of it, I want you to have these three things in mind. So what does the partnership look like? Maybe you're bringing on an artist who's been raised with the traditional knowledge of whakaido, of mahi toi Māori. And what does that look like in partnership? Okay, it looks like you're going to work for us 5 hours a week to help design this character. What does the protection of that look like? So in my eyes, the protection from both parts is 1, Māori content becomes IP. It becomes ownable, right? You can protect IP. If they're making content in your game, they are protecting their knowledge using your studio, or if you are the Māori studio, using your studio as a means to holding that IP. So no one can take it and whatever else. The other end is if you are a non-Māori studio working with Māori content, but working with iwi, The protection you get is when some angry Māori come to your door with their pitchforks saying, why are you using our mātauranga Māori? You get to say, we're working with our local iwi. Your local iwi comes in, we're working with them too. Yep, we acknowledge that. And you get the protection of not being token, of not being this, that, the other, that, our people can be harsh. They come from a long line of harshness and they'll throw it right at you. But that's another layer of protection that goes both ways. So that's the value in that partnership. When it comes to participation, I need to be clear on this, that I don't want Māori content to be an afterthought of your gaming product. Okay? I want it to be at the forefront of your thoughts in your planning process, even in the concept phase, whether it's concept art, whether it's your narrative, whether it's your level design, character design, whatever you need to do, it needs to be implemented at the start. And then you need to, as soon as you can, bring Māori to the forefront and work together to make that product. So that might just be for one aspect, could be just the art, could be just te reo Māori, it could just be one character. But for that whole process, start to finish, to launch, to publishing, need to work with them on these partnerships, protecting and keeping them participated. Ka pai. So, big fan of Lord of the Rings, but I'll tell you why these are relevant. So just quickly based on that, There and Back Again, A Hobbit Tale by Bilbo Baggins. Now we can see There and Back Again, a Māori tale of Atawhai Interactive. So Atawhai Interactive, from the very beginning, have implemented their game Tōrua to be set in Te Ao Māori. That was the very intent. Although on their team they don't have the expertise or the mātauranga Māori to do that by themselves, even though they have Māori in their team, they still went and sought consultation. So now they have an artist, a Māori mahitoi artist working with them that does carving and does all their work within their game. And lastly, for partnership, at least another point, I'll change the quote a bit. So a Māori is never late, nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to. Meaning, in partnership deals with Māori, there are a few things to understand. One being, if you feel like their engagement is nil after you've already set up a partnership or whatever, it's not a bad thing. It's probably because they're trusting you. And they only really turn up when they're like, oh shit, something's gone wrong, or they need to talk to you desperately about it. So see there, like disengagement is more of a engagement because they're trusting you with their mātauranga. They're trusting you with whatever partnership deal you have made with them. So that's the other point of being late. They might not be present throughout the whole process, but please try and keep up. Give them the updates. Give them everything that you would the whole team to keep them on board. And find that time again for another cup of tea, another biscuit. All right, let's get into protection. This is when it gets a bit iffy, okay? So if we look at this fortified par, this is just like a D&D makeup of what a par could look like. But you can see the different fence lines and layers of protection to look after the settlement. So in terms of protection, ko te kai a te rangatira he kōrero. Just have a drink, sorry. Ko te kai a te rangatira he kōrero. That means, I guess the sustenance of a chief is his words. Meaning, whatever the iwi say to do your best to do that. Or if it does need to change because it doesn't suit what you guys are looking for, talk. Just honest communication. Show them an example. Mana ki whenua, mana ki tangata. So this is like looking after the land and it looks after the people. So you could see your studio as the land, I guess, and the people being your workers in partnership with iwi or with Māori. But it starts with looking after the land. I guess this is from a studio perspective. So what does the foundation look like for your game and your intent? How was that being translated to look after the people working on it? So the protection of people, I mentioned that earlier. Māori IP gets brought into as game content, gets looked after as IP. It goes the other way. If you're getting attacked for having Māori IP, you can say, I've got this partnership set up already. And that comes down to te taura here tangata. So the taura here tangata for us is very frail in terms of Māori trusting other people with their IP. And te taura here tangata means like it's the woven string that binds humanity, I guess, that binds people together. That's the bond between making relationships, partnerships. Now, treat the relationship not as someone who has high anxiety, but more so that it can be fragile when talking about mātauranga Māori and implementing it. So be open. I guess also have your own boundaries of what you want to and your own expectations of what those look like too. But this is just the first engagement. I know it's a lot at the moment, but you'll get there. Now, I just wanted to show some active ways of participation from some of our Dunedin studios and one Auckland studio. So this here is Jade. He's non-Māori. He's working at Te Kura Kaupapa Māori o Ōtepoti, alongside Eric Alexander, who is Māori, but they work for Usual Suspects Studios. So it's only money, that's the bros. So every Thursday, they go into this Kura Kaupapa and literally just teach them game development. And not in a way of you need to do coding and setting it out like a unit standard for school, but in a way of engaging with the tamariki for what their interests are. So there's these three girls in the class. One loves TikTok, loves doing little TikTok dances. So we funneled her into doing like video editing, production, marketing. One of the other girls, she loves fashion. So we got her to do character models. The next girl, she loved telling everyone what to do. So she's right at the producer level and cracking the whip. Whereas one of the boys in the class, his father is a civil engineer. And that's what he wants to do also. But now that we've offered this, Usual Suspects is actually going to hire him next year. Because the quality of content in his modeling, whether it's weapons, characters, level design, have been phenomenal because he's got all this mātauranga around being a civil engineer, working with his father. So that's one active way of participating, even if it's not into making content for games. It creates the pathways for rangatahi to look at this career. We briefly touched on Tōrua, but if you want to look on the left, that is the concept art before Tōrua even got funding and got set up through us at Code. But now we're looking at the one on the right now, which is, Tōrua, all in Māori, has some aspects of Māori mahi toa. You can see briefly in the clouds next to the T in the middle, some of the art from the artist that has been brought into this. And I guess everything that Lisa and their team will pump out of this is set in te ao Māori. It's not set in Western culture. It's coming from a journey of a simple bird, non-violent game, going on a journey back to his people. And now I can guess, since Code's gone national, I can brush this one off. But even though Meta Interactive are a Māori-led game studio, they still go through consultation for anything Māori within their game. Maru can recognise her strengths and her weaknesses. So what she literally did is bring on Thomas, who designed all their tāmoko for their characters. But it started off with the question of, who is this character? Where are they from? What's their whakapapa? And then comes the deeper conversation, narrative design of, sheesh, what is the kōrero of this character? And then they have to write that all up and make it make sense, not just in Te Ao Māori standard, but for the product they're wanting to make. So Thomas then designed all the tāmoko for all their characters for Guardian Mile. And now every character has this unique backstory that's set in Te Ao Māori, and that's the value that these characters are going to bring when we meet them, hopefully when they get that publishing, yeah. But yeah, this is just the first step, bit of a look, and every step going forward is going to require this. Just cups of teas, talking with aunties, talking with uncles, being told off, maybe not being so told off. But this is just an introduction of what that space looked like, especially having worked over in it for the last 2.5 years with this focus of looking after Māori content, trying to have more Māori content in the industry, that it's not closed off for Māori only, that it can be used by non-Māori if you meet those 3 Ps. If you go and work in partnership, if you look at how to protect one another, if you actively participate together to make your game. So yeah, I'll open up the floor for questions. If anyone's got anything burning, all right, kia ora.
Hi there. I was just wondering if you had any advice for smaller studios or like solo devs to kind of get in contact more with their local Māori community and do that on like, I don't want to say reasonable budget, but like little to no money.
I guess I'm speaking very biasly in terms of being in the South Island and being from Ngaitahu myself and being able to navigate that. But as a iwi, we typically, like if you would just approach us, I guess, and it all comes down to your intent. And if your intent's in the right place, then in terms of like money and funding and stuff, at least for Ngaitahu, I can't speak for other iwi, but They even have their own allocations of funding for set projects, for initiatives, especially around their youth. So I think just reaching out, you never know the opportunities that they may have from other funding sources or what their whānau might be into as well. But you won't know until you ask. And it sounds like you have the right intentions, so just go in. I wouldn't be too worried about it. But you can always just email me too, and I can be part of those conversations as well. Ka whai?
Hey Taikawa, how's it going? I was just going to ask, this is kind of something that we talked about in Dunedin earlier on, but I thought, I don't know, maybe it'd be an interesting thing to bring up was like, was spending time with Jerome talking about using Tangapuoro in video games, and I was wondering how you feel about like how to have that conversation with someone who's not necessarily in the games industry, and you want to try and explain like this is what we're doing, and this is how trying to bridge that gap of like this is what's going to happen with the stuff that you're bringing to our game. Do you have any thoughts on like how to bridge that gap?
I think you just have to be very clear about what content you're bringing in and how you're using it. I know in our situation with Jerome, he just wanted to share, and his whole kaupapa was about sharing Tangapuoro with the world pretty much. But that's not going to be the case for every iwi, for every individual that has mātauranga Māori like that. So it's just being honest and keeping to your kōrero, te kōrero a te rangatira. Te kai a te rangatira he kōrero, so keeping that, this is chief speak, and what you say is what you're going to do, and I guess providing a way of proving that every time with them. I think that's a way. It's not the only option, but it's also involving them too the whole time. If you can actually bring them in to be on your team as a studio or as an individual, like just working with them, making their traditional knowledge matter in a digital sense. And they might even open up their own career and be like, oh, now I'm a game developer. So it's a win-win. Kia ora.
Kia ora, kia ora. Tēnā koe motu kōrero e hoa. For the tangata whenua who are much like some of us in this room in the games industry, what can we do and who can we reach out to help inspire younger generations of Māori?
Go home. And I don't say that in a bad sense. I mean, like, go back to your people. It's not always working with those who are directly around you, but you will be you'll be a post, right? You'll be someone that your iwi looks to as an idol, I guess, as someone to look up to, for your mahi in that direction. I know whenever I go to the marae at least, and all my little cousins are like, oh, you make games, you do this, you do that, don't you? And I'm like, yes, and yes, and yes. And then there's just a bombardment of questions. What games do you play? What da, 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 da. So they're very excited, and there's a buzz in the room around it. And unfortunately, I live close to where I'm from. I live where I'm from. And I know that's not always the case for us that have been urbanized or whatever else. But yeah, go home. And if you can't find it at home and have that urge of wanting to help, then reach out to the local iwi to where you are placed. So if I was here, I'd be going down to Karaka Cafe and having a kōrero every day with aunties about, oh, have you looked at games as a way of telling our stories, of a way of holding the knowledge of our stories and owning that as IP? That's what I'd be doing. And getting them on board to feeling comfortable that it's not just for monetary value. It's like, these kōrero, they're relevant to our rangatahi because rangatahi love playing games. So I know we can make a cool fighter game of all our tupuna and they can smash each other because I just want to hit that whalarangi. Like, you can have those yarns with them and get them on board in ways that they'll be like, oh, there is value. But then it might get into politics of like, no, my tupuna's 7 foot handsome and yours isn't. Like, I don't know. But that's a whole other kōrero. Yeah, kia ora, mate. Yeah, last question. Oh.
Kia ora. I'm a Māori game designer, or at least I like to say I am, and I work at a small company. And I find it really hard when I make designs with my Māori content in it and that to get iwis or people within the iwis to kind of connect with us and kind of help us, where I want to have that kōrero with them where I can improve my game design, but it's really hard. What would you suggest with getting in contact with iwis just in generally? My iwis, I'm not very close with them, so I find it really hard to just get in contact with any of them. Yeah.
One thing I will say is like patua te whakamā, meaning whakamā can be explained as being embarrassed, but I want to look at whakamā as feeling exposed. I want you to find trust that everyone, at least these days, have felt that expression of feeling exposed in Te Ao Māori. So I encourage you then to continue hitting up your own people and being like, hey, I really want this, I want to connect. This is my way for connecting back to you guys. please, like, I'm looking for your support, but this is how I can support you. I can make our content. I can do this, this, and that. I can form a way of protecting our mātauranga, of anything, creating pathways for our youth. You can show them the value of your mahi. I'm sure you can do that. And everyone's on their own journey with their own whakapapa, and it is difficult, and I acknowledge that. But I hope you feel a trust. I know there's heaps of us in this room. Me, myself, I'm not the Māori lookingest person in the world. But whenever I went up back Taranaki, they're like, who's that white bait over there? Like we even played Bull Rush, and they said, oh, white skin. And I smashed them. But anyway, sorry. I just want to encourage you to just keep hitting your own people. And if the avenues there then close up, then just look at it as pan-Māori. Go to your local iwi and engage with whoever is willing to engage. Ngāi Tahu has lost heaps of mātauranga Māori and has relied on a lot of different iwi to bring our culture back. So just rely on those around you. You can just look me up too. Sorry. Whākarau. Sorry. Yeah. My kapai. Thanks for coming to listen. It's really a privilege to have these types of opportunities to get up and talk to you fellas. If there is further questions, feel free to just find me around. Yeah, kia ora.